Hey there, chuckleheads! Buckle up for a wild ride into the hilariously twisted world of darkly funny tales. We've got stories that'll tickle your funny bone and send shivers down your spine, all at the same time. Think of it like this. It's like that time you found a $20 bill in your old jeans, but then you realized it was stuck to a used gum wrapper. Yeah, that kind of messed up humor. So grab your sense of humor, leave your sanity at the door, and get ready to dive into some seriously funny stories that will leave you saying, wait, did that just happen? Let's do this. Picture this, a stormy night. The power's out, and a family huddles around their last flickering candle. The wind howls outside, rattling the windows, and the rain pelts down in sheets, creating an eerie symphony of nature's fury. Mom's freaking out about the impending darkness, her eyes darting around nervously. Dad's trying to fix the fuse box with a rusty screwdriver, muttering under his breath about outdated wiring, and little Timmy's just happy he doesn't have to do his homework. He's blissfully unaware of the chaos around him, finding joy in the unexpected break from routine. But then, disaster strikes. The candle sputters and dies, plunging the house into absolute darkness. The room is swallowed by shadows, and the family is left in a void of blackness, their only source of light now gone. Cue the dramatic music and screams of terror. The atmosphere is thick with tension, and every creak and groan of the house seems amplified in the pitch-black night. Okay, maybe not screams, but definitely some heavy sighs and muttered curses. The frustration is palpable as they fumble around, trying to find another source of light.
Now, Timmy, being the resourceful little scamp that he is, decides to take matters into his own grubby hands. He can't stand the thought of sitting in the dark, so he hatches a plan. He remembers seeing candles at their creepy old neighbor's house, the one with the overgrown lawn and the collection of garden gnomes that look suspiciously like they're plotting world domination. The house always gave him the chills, but desperate times call for desperate measures.
Timmy sneaks out, heart pounding like a drum solo, and manages to snag a candle from the neighbor's porch. The thrill of the adventure makes his heart race, and he feels like a hero in his own story. He returns home, a triumphant grin on his face, feeling like a pint-sized Indiana Jones who just raided a tomb for a sacred artifact. His family greets him with a mix of relief and amusement. The family cheers, relieved to have a source of light again. They gather around Timmy, their hero, and the mood lightens considerably. But their relief is short-lived. A sense of unease creeps in as they notice something off about the candle.
As Timmy lights the candle, a pungent odor fills the air. A sickly sweet smell that reminds everyone of their grandma's attic and questionable life choices. The scent is overpowering, and they exchange worried glances. Suddenly the candle flame turns an eerie shade of green, and the room grows noticeably colder. The once comforting light now casts unsettling shadows on the walls. That's when they notice the inscription on the candle holder, "In loving memory of Mr. Whiskers." The realization hits them like a ton of bricks.
Turns out Timmy didn't just steal a candle, he stole a candle from a funeral. The gravity of the situation dawns on them, and they can't help but feel a mix of horror and guilt. The family stares at each other, their faces a mixture of horror and amusement. They can't believe the turn of events, and a nervous laughter bubbles up. Well, everyone except Timmy, who's just wondering if ghosts like cookies. His innocent curiosity provides a moment of levity in the midst of the bizarre situation. Now let's talk about a pigeon with a PhD in parkour and a knack for outsmarting humans. This isn't just any pigeon, this is a bird with a brain, a true urban legend. This feathered mastermind, let's call him Percy, ruled the roost at the city park. He was the undisputed king of the park, a true avian genius. He knew all the best spots for breadcrumbs, the prime locations where humans would generously scatter their snacks. Had the park squirrels on speed dial for gossip, always staying one step ahead of any potential threats or opportunities, and could dodge a rogue frisbee with the grace of a ninja. His agility was unmatched, making him a legend among the park's inhabitants. One sunny afternoon, a group of kids decided to test Percy's patience. They had heard tales of his cunning and wanted to see it for themselves. Armed with a butterfly net and enough enthusiasm to power a small village, they set out to catch the elusive pigeon. Their laughter echoed through the park as they strategized their approach. Little did they know, they were dealing with a bird who could outsmart a chess-playing chimpanzee. The chase was on. Percy was ready for the challenge. Percy zipped and zoomed, his little wings working overtime as he dodged and weaved through the park. He was a blur of feathers, effortlessly evading capture. He led the kids on a merry chase, past the ice cream stand, around the fountain, and through every twist and turn the park had to offer. And even through a game of frisbee golf, much to the chagrin of the players. The park was his playground and he knew every inch of it. Percy, being a master strategist, decided to up the ante. He had a plan, and it was time to put it into action. He flew towards a group of pigeons pecking at the ground, blending in seamlessly. His camouflage was perfect, making him nearly invisible among his peers. The kids, panting and sweating, were momentarily stumped. They looked around in confusion, trying to spot their elusive target. They had lost their prey. Percy had outsmarted them once again, proving his superior intellect. But just when they thought all hope was lost, Percy struck. He had one final trick up his sleeve. He swooped down from his hiding spot, snatched a kid's ice cream cone right out of their hand, and flew off with his prize. And flew off into the sunset, leaving behind a trail of laughter and the sweet, sweet taste of victory. The kids couldn't help but laugh at the audacity of the clever bird. Percy, the pigeon mastermind, had done it again. He had proven his mettle and outsmarted the humans once more. He had outsmarted the humans and lived to squawk another day. His legend grew with each daring escapade. And as he enjoyed his stolen ice cream cone, he couldn't help but think, humans, they're cute when they're not trying to catch you. With a satisfied squawk, Percy savored his victory, knowing that tomorrow would bring another adventure. Meet Gary, a man who trusts technology more than his own instincts. One night, armed with his trusty GPS and a playlist of questionable 80s pop songs, Gary sets out on a road trip. He's on a mission to visit his Aunt Mildred, who, according to her last postcard, had won a lifetime supply of prune juice and wanted to share the wealth.
As Gary drives, his GPS starts acting up. The usually calm and collected voice of Siri's distant cousin is replaced by a raspy whisper that sounds suspiciously like it's gargling gravel. The map on the screen goes haywire, showing Gary driving through cornfields, over mountains, and even briefly into the ocean.
Ignoring all logic and common sense, Gary follows the GPS's increasingly erratic directions. He finds himself driving down a dark and deserted road, the only light coming from his headlights and the occasional firefly that had lost its way. Finally, the GPS announces, "You have arrived at your destination." Gary looks around and realizes with a growing sense of dread that he's parked in front of a cemetery. The gates are creaking open, and a thick fog is rolling in, creating the perfect setting for a horror movie marathon.
Suddenly, the back door of Gary's car opens and a voice says, "Excuse me, good sir, do you mind giving me a lift? I seem to be a bit departed." Gary turns around to find a ghostly figure sitting in his back seat, looking like a cross between a Shakespearean actor and a bedsheet that had seen better days.
Gary, being Gary, faints. The ghost, sighing deeply, sets the GPS to nearest bus stop and mutters, "Honestly, the things I have to put up with." Let's be honest, we've all had friends who take pranks a little too far. Sometimes these pranks are harmless and end in laughter, but other times they can spiral out of control in ways no one could have predicted. Meet Chad, Brad, and their unfortunate friend Kevin. These three were inseparable, always looking for the next big laugh, often at each other's expense. These three amigos were the epitome of bros being bros, which basically meant pulling pranks that ranged from mildly amusing to downright questionable. Their friendship thrived on these antics, each prank more elaborate than the last.
One Halloween, Chad and Brad decided to prank Kevin with a fake skeleton because, originality isn't their strong suit. They figured it would be the perfect scare given Kevin's notorious jumpiness. They snuck into Kevin's apartment armed with a plastic skeleton named Mr. Bones and enough mischief to make Dennis the Menace proud. They had planned every detail meticulously, ensuring maximum fright. They strategically placed Mr. Bones in Kevin's shower, posed him reading a newspaper on the toilet, and even had him hanging from the ceiling fan like a macabre disco dancer. The setup was perfect, and they could hardly contain their excitement. They were so proud of themselves. They high-fived each other harder than a couple of teenagers who just aced a video game. The anticipation of Kevin's reaction was almost too much to bear.
Kevin, being used to his friend's shenanigans, just sighed when he saw Mr. Bones chilling in his apartment. He had grown accustomed to their antics and knew better than to let it get to him. He moved the skeleton to the side, grabbed a beer from the fridge, and settled down to watch a movie. Little did he know, the night was far from over. But as the night went on, strange things started happening. The atmosphere grew tense, and Kevin couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Doors creaked open and slammed shut. Lights flickered, and Kevin swore he heard the faint sound of bones rattling. It was as if the apartment had come alive with a sinister energy. He brushed it off as his imagination running wild, fueled by too much caffeine and the lingering feeling that he was forgetting something important. He tried to focus on the movie, but the eerie sounds persisted.
Suddenly, the lights went out, plunging the apartment into darkness. Kevin's heart raced as he fumbled for his phone to use as a flashlight. A blood-curdling scream pierced the air, followed by the sound of crashing furniture and the distinct clatter of bones hitting the floor. Kevin's fear turned into sheer terror. Chad and Brad, hiding outside, high-fived each other again, thinking Kevin was putting on a show. They had no idea what was really happening inside, but when the lights flickered back on, they were met with a sight that made their blood run cold. The scene inside was far more horrifying than they had anticipated. Standing in the middle of the room, surrounded by broken furniture and clutching a very real femur bone, was a skeleton. It was a sight straight out of a nightmare. And it wasn't Mr. Bones. This skeleton seemed to have a life of its own, and it was not happy. Chad and Brad stared in horror as the skeleton turned towards them, its bony jaw seemingly grinning. They realized too late that their prank had awakened something far more sinister.
They had gone too far this time, and they were about to face the bone-chilling consequences. The prank had taken on a life of its own, and there was no turning back. Let's just say they learned a valuable lesson that night. Some pranks are better left buried. The memory of that night would haunt them forever, a chilling reminder of the dangers of going too far. Enjoyed those twisted tales? Smash that like button. We put the dark in dark humor and the fun in funeral. Okay, maybe not the last one, but you get the idea. Share with your friends who love dark humor, because laughter is best served with a side of existential dread. Or maybe just a plate of cookies. We're not picky. And don't forget to subscribe for more funny, creepy, and unforgettable stories. We've got a crypt full of tales that will make you laugh, cringe, and maybe sleep with the lights on. Until next time, stay twisted. Sound upbeat tune with a friendly voiceover like, share, subscribe.